most improbable moments in the history of the National Security Council, President Donald Trump fired a number of senior officials after a meeting last Wednesday with conservative journalist Laura Loomer. Concerning evidence was apparently presented to Donald Trump regarding the loyalty and background of these suspect hires, a standard vetting practice that was apparently bypassed or ignored by the White House team altogether. Among the purged NSC officers were one David Fife, the son of Doug Fife, and a China expert who oversaw national security issues. There's also Brian Walsh. He oversaw intelligence matters. Maggie Doherty led the international organizations portfolio, one Thomas Boudry, who worked on legislative affairs. Now, Laura also presented her vetting research about NSC Deputy Advisor Alex Wong, Mike Waltz's deputy. On the social media platform X last week, Loomer questioned the loyalty of Wong and his wife, who appears to be an Obama regime loyalist and a Department of Justice employee who prosecuted, you probably guessed it, J6 political prisoners. In addition, President Donald Trump fired NSA Director General Timothy Howe and his deputy Wendy Noble last Thursday night. Now, it's unclear whether these firings were related to that meeting with Laura Loomer, but the general was not only NSA director, he was also commander of U.S. Cyber Command and chief of the Central Security Service. According to NSA sources known only to Project Sentinel, which is a group on my Substack at emerald.tv, so you can go there to read more about this, NSA Director General Howe had been ordered to fire all the NSA employees involved in that notorious sex chat scandal that broke out in February at the spy agency. But the general had failed to take action. President Trump's meeting with Laura Loomer and the previous scandal known as Signalgate. For some reason, you've been under a rock and haven't heard about it. It's a bizarre incident where National Security Advisor Waltz and his staff supposedly added rabid leftist Atlantic magazine editor Jeffrey Goldberg to a Signal group chat regarding planned military operations against the Houthis, brings up a number of interesting questions. For instance, why did they have to follow Laura Loomer to vet Trump's National Security Council staffers rather than the Trump's own team? There are reports that Waltz demanded the right to hire his own team, and thus you could say he's solely responsible for staffing Trump's NSC with mostly anti-Trump neocons. In addition, there's the dismal prospect that Waltz never bothered to fire all the Biden regime holdovers already inside the NSC. That's like an original sin. In that scenario, neither Chief of Staff Susie Wiles nor Director of the Presidential Personnel Office Sergio Gore were involved in the hiring of these individuals, and so it came as a surprise, apparently, to the Trump White House that its own NSC was full of rabid anti-Trump neocons. If that scenario is true, then the obvious question is, why hasn't Waltz and Wong been fired yet either? There's another intriguing scenario that has not been discussed. The U.S. intelligence community has a backdoor to the Signal app and had the capability to add people without a user's knowledge. This isn't in dispute, okay? This isn't conspiracy. It's not speculation. The members of Project Sentinel are certain that thousands of rogue actors still remain inside the intel community to this day. Therefore, there's a strong possibility that Signalgate is actually a hostile information operation against the new Trump administration that's designed to open up attack vectors against senior Trump officials. That's why negative media stories morphed from attacks on Waltz initially to attacks on Vice President J.D. Vance and finally to attacks on SecDef Hegseth. The purpose is to undermine the credibility of all of them. As we said from the beginning, the Trump administration must purge the entire federal bureaucracy to have operational control of the federal bureaucracy. Joining me now is global geopolitical analyst on geopolitics, China, and the Middle East. He just returned from the Middle East, Mr. John Rossomando. John, it's good to see you. And I'm glad you could join me today because you retweeted this little scoop I had related to the now former National Security Agency director. And you have a little bit more context to add to this story. So could you please elaborate on that for my audience?
Well, I think that, if you look at things such as Amaryllis Fox Kennedy's memoir about her time in the CIA and things such as highlighted by Mike Waller, my former Center for Security Policy colleague, noting that back during the 1970s, 1980s, that the CIA ran a clandestine sex club in Northern Virginia that was busted by Czech intelligence. So, I mean, it talks about a cultural issue. I mean, in any other context, these people who were part of this sex chat would have been fired, would have been dismissed altogether. I mean, why is it that the head of the National Security Agency, now former, did absolutely nothing? It seems to me that there's a bit of a cultural issue going on here, and people feel that because they have a secret jobs that they can get away with things.
So how does the Trump administration counter that? Obviously, if they fired Hal, but sounds like this is a problem that far predates the Trump administration, right? And they have an opportunity here to do something about it. So what should they do, John?
Well, they should have hired, loyalists who are veterans of the CIA, NSA, who are pro-Trump. I mean, I have friends who were former CIA who, are like, why do they have John Ratcliffe just sitting around at CIA doing absolutely nothing when they should have brought in people, say, like Sam Faddis and others who have an institutional knowledge of how these organizations work, where to look, what stones to turn over. Let's not forget that General Mike Flynn was purged out of Trump's first administration using blackmail because he knew where everything was. And, he was the head of the DIA. Why isn't Trump bringing, reactivating Flynn and putting him in charge of NSA or something like that?
That's a question a lot of people have asked. General Flynn did an event down at Mar-a-Lago a month or two ago, and he said that, or President Trump said he'd asked General Flynn to join the administration, offered him a bunch of jobs. But I do think, like you said, General Flynn knows where the bodies are buried. That's why he was so problematic for them and was really the first casualty of the first term. We do need people with, like you said, institutional knowledge that are not communist, Marxist revolutionaries themselves or subversives. But it seems like, and you look, I think there's a lot of good, there's a mixed bag in this Trump term, but it's a better mixed bag than it was the first time around, right? I do think there's more good going on right now, but we still obviously have a personnel problem, which Signalgate highlighted. Perhaps it was a blessing in disguise. I said, the intelligence experts I talked to say that there's potential that this was a subversive action by those anti-Trumpers in the intel community who have a backdoor to the Signal app and could have added Goldberg into the chat. Okay, that's plausible based on the technology. And then they started to discredit with media stories figures like Hegseth, Vance, and Waltz. But it did end up backfiring because it highlighted the NSC in a way that Trump was able to have Laura Loomer, who's actually really good at vetting and probably should be leading the vetting for the Trump administration, considering, it seems like there's not that much vetting right now, to go in and say, these are some really bad actors. And there's been 18 to go so far, but not Waltz and Wong. Clearly, the CIA, though, besides the NSC, as you noted, the CIA is very problematic. Is there any... It's been pretty quiet over there. Is Ratcliffe doing any kind of reforms to the CIA? You're still very tuned in and in touch with a lot of people in the intel community, so I know you hear things. Is he doing anything?
Well, I was out to lunch with a retired officer over the weekend, and my friend was ranting about what they saw as Ratcliffe's failure to make any significant changes. I mean, changing the people who are doing ops to his deputy, and they believe that they need to put people in who know the institutions, and nothing is happening. So, well, that's a real problem. Although I can say one thing, knowing the director for Middle East policy for many years, he's a real star. He gets the problems we have in the Middle East with the jihadis and with the Muslim Brotherhood and so forth. So I can give kudos where they're due. And I know one of the people who's joining his team is highly qualified. So I think that it's sort of hit or miss here.
Well, we'll see. I think people kind of forgot about the CIA because we've been focused on so many other things. So Ratcliffe thus far has gotten a bit of a pass. I think more people are probably watching the FBI, right, with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, because they're more popular and well figures. They're, personalities in conservative news. So people personally know them and feel like they know them, even if they don't personally. So there's more attention on that. But there's obviously, like you said, a cultural problem as it relates to sex clubs, sex chats when it comes to the intel community. It sounds like stuff that you would only see in a Hollywood movie, but unfortunately.
If you go and look at Amaryllis Fox Kennedy's memoir, she was like talking about how all the sex stuff that's tied into CIA training at the farm, which she was like saying all they would ever do would be like having sex. And most people, when they're studying, they just stick in the books, and it's a little bit interesting how many times she talks about it in her memoir.
That's interesting, and Amaryllis Fox currently sits on the PDAB board, which is what the Presidential Intelligence Advisory Board, which I am told is more of a ceremonial board at this point. That's not, a group that's very seriously giving intelligence to the president. But it is noteworthy, since you brought up her name, John Rosamondo. Very fascinating topic. Thank you so much for jumping on with us so quickly today. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Here's another Absolute Truth exclusive we'll be bringing to you tomorrow. We have obtained the official PowerPoint presentation with information, intelligence related to Tren de Agua that was presented to Trump national security officials, including the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. This is the intelligence that helped them decide that they needed to take action against Venezuela. If you'll recall, we've been reporting about the different measures that Donald Trump has enacted against the Latin American country and why. We will go more in detail about what this document, this PowerPoint presentation contains, and why it moved Trump administration officials to immediately take action. That's tomorrow, so be sure to tune in at 8 p.m.
Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? Well, I recently saw a video he made and I was shocked. That guy's amazing and he's staying active well into his 80s. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by just making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger, her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Chuck made a very special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/Lindell. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/Lindell. You won't believe how simple it is.
Absolute, utter madness here today. I don't know, really. This makes absolutely no sense. There's absolutely no reason for this to be happening. Absolute irresponsibility. The way this story has been disseminated, nobody knows anything more about tariffs than they did yesterday, except some insane number came out that was figured out by, I don't know, putting two apples, 2 carrots, and a bag of cashews together, dividing it by 2, multiplying by 9, and coming up with a number that absolutely has decimated this stock market.
Absolutely decimated. Less than a week after President Donald Trump imposed his historic tariffs on all foreign goods, the U.S. stock market has dropped. I'm sure you've heard. A lot of you are probably very closely watching your portfolios. Well, many people have called today Black Monday on the stock market, evoking images of the 1930s Great Depression when the stock market collapsed and the economy ground down to an almost halt for almost a decade. But is this really that? Renowned economist Thomas Sowell told Peter Robinson at the Hoover Institution that Trump's tariffs could be ruinous for both the 47th president and the country.
Franklin D. Roosevelt, when he was president in the 1930s, said that you have to try things, and if they don't work, then you admit it, you abandon that, and you go on to something else, and you try that until you come across something that does work. Now that's not a bad approach if you are operating within a known system of rules. Mm. But if you are the one who's making the rules, then all the other people have no idea what you're going to do next. And that is the formula for having people hang on to their money until they figure out what you're going to do. And when a lot of people hang on to their money, you can get results such as you got during the Great Depression of the 1930s.
For his part, President Donald Trump told Fox News this recently.
Have you talked to any tech leaders over the weekend about the tariffs?
Yeah, I talked to the biggest in the world. I talked to the biggest of them all, many of them. But I've talked to, I would say 4 or 5 that are considered the biggest. They don't, you know what they said? We don't blame you.
And already, reportedly, multiple countries affected by Trump's tariff scheme has appeared to be crying uncle before the trade wars even get going. So how is this really going on, and where do we really stand? To help us understand that is the great Ed Dowd. He is the CEO and founder of Finance Technologies, or founding partner of Finance Technologies. Ed, there is so much panic going around, and a lot of that is fueled by the media. Should we be in panic?
Well, look, we put out a report in January detailing what President Trump's policies and the reversals of the fraudulent economy were going to do to the GDP and asset markets. The asset markets, the stock market in particular, started peaking. The NASDAQ peaked in December, the S&P in February. The AI bubble had already burst around February with the announcement of DeepSeek. There's been a halting of CapEx. That was a ginormous bubble. This whole stock market has been driven by 7 stocks. So people who own these ETFs that are indices have basically have exposure to 47 stocks comprise 40% of their ETF, their / S&P ETF. So this was already in process going down. I was talking to hedge funds. They were delevering because the AI bubble had popped. The tariff news came in and accelerated margin calls, and here we are. The tariff news is going to only get better from here. There's going to be deals struck. And yes, they could have messaged this a lot better. That was a bump. They fumbled that one. And it wasn't clear what they were doing. But we're still analyzing the tariffs. And we came to the conclusion their formula is basically a goal-seek equation. Basically, we want 0 tariffs or 0 deficits. We'll start with that number. Come talk to us, and we'll go from there. Because what they could have done is reciprocal tariffs, ticky-tacky, going into all the laws and agreements that have been made over the years. That would have taken a tremendous amount of time. Instead, this is going to bring people to the table. The news flow is already starting to get better. You're going to see more and more countries come. And you know, when I think Thomas Sowell talked about the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Acts, that was in 1930. We were already in a depression. So economists have been claiming that caused the Great Depression. We had already had a stock market bubble burst in 29. We had bank failures in 30. The tariffs were not the cause of the Great Depression, in my humble opinion. So here we are with everybody screaming bloody murder. The stock market that Trump inherited was at all-time valuations. It was a joke. It was a joke stock market driven by 7 stocks. We wrote in January and then subsequently in a free news piece on our website about stock market valuations versus bonds. And statistically, all you had to do was look at the valuations and the risk-adjusted returns of bonds versus stocks, and you were going to lose money over the next 10 years if you bought at the top. And a lot of people did. And so now this is what we have. We have a lot of confusion, a lot of people screaming, wringing their hands. I saw a lot of people in our camp losing their minds. I guess their 401k came down, especially these young people screaming about their 401k. You can't touch it for 20 years anyways. So this is just a much ado about nothing. And I said this on Steve Bannon's show on Friday afternoon, the exact thing I'm telling you. Scott Besson, who I don't know, I don't talk to, said exactly the same thing, that the AI bubble burst and that the stock market was already coming down. There were margin calls coming. This just accelerated it. And now we're going to get a relief rally. Unfortunately, Trump inherited a fraudulent economy that was propping up the housing market. We're going to get a housing recession. And ultimately, we think the stock market goes down 50% sometime, by the end of this year, early next. And that's just the way it is. There's nothing that can be done about it. It's endogenous to the economy. It was floated. The housing prices were floated by illegal aliens renting up and putting pressure on rents.
Yeah. And look, as far as the messaging issue, I think they could have done a little bit better. But here's the thing. I don't think they had much media that would even really let them message, because everybody has been indoctrinated with bad so long, especially in conservative circles, right? So they had a hard time, I think, getting people to go out there and message that. They're obviously committed to the tariffs. We don't see them backing off. Besson said he didn't care about the stock market at all. I think that scared a lot of your, people you used to hang out with, that they just don't care if the stock market drops. How long were the tariffs absolutely necessary to fix our economy? I mean, it's been propped up on smoke and mirrors for so long. Were they absolutely necessary? And then how long will it take for Trump to really kind of get our economy into a real economy, right? To course correct the decades long of bad policies and printing money.
Look, this is something needed to be done. We couldn't continue the way we were continuing because we would have a revolution. The real economy has been a disaster for middle-class America. The stock market was being fueled and pumped by 7 stocks that were benefiting from government spending and illegal aliens painting fake GDP numbers and payroll numbers. That all Trump was elected to reverse all those policies. That's why we wrote our report in January. If you had a brain in your head and you understood what floated the fake economy, Trump got elected to remove that. So we're going to get a recession regardless. And Ronald Reagan had the same thing. He got elected minus 2% real wage growth in 1980. He had a double-dip recession his first 2 years in office, and then he restructured the economy, and then it boomed. Now, I don't know if Trump can do it. That's our only hope, because otherwise it's more of the same globalism and hollowing out of America. And this is the best shot we have. It's going to take time for these policies to work their way through the economy. Interest rates, mark my words, are going to come down. The Fed will lower interest rates. That will take time to work its way through the economy. But there's going to be a deep, sharp recession. Maybe even get a double dip. But the point is, this is what you voted for, to stop complaining, because this ultimately will put America on the right path. But it's going to take time. It's going to take time. But I will tell you, after Friday's sell-off, the smart people who figured this out that I know covered all their shorts and went long the market. So anybody who decided to sell all their stocks on Friday are probably going to be buying them back higher right when it rolls over again for the housing recession. Right. This is human nature. It's just idiocy. I've seen it time and time again.
I got a solution for their messaging problem. They should recruit you to do their messaging for them, Ed Dow, because you explain it so plainly and so easy for just even the layman to understand. So if you want to follow someone that's not going to cause panic for you, you should follow Ed on X to see what his take is. It's always very reassuring to me. I immediately go to Ed when anything is happening in the market or economic wise to help me understand it. At Dowd Edward, thank you for making it. I love what you tweeted too. Black Monday is canceled. That's what we'll name this segment. It's good to see you.
Thank you, Emerald. Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Whether it's being a weekend warrior or spending time with your family, feeling your best is the key to doing the things you love. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Nirvanta. It's a natural solution designed to help you stay active and live well naturally. Nirvanta is a topical blend of all natural essential oils like frankincense, myrrh, and a proprietary gold standard plant stock extract. It's perfect for your hands, feet, knees, back, or anywhere else that needs a little extra care. Use Nirvanta proactively as part of your daily maintenance routine, and you're guaranteed you're going to feel the difference. Simply massage Nirvanta in for at least 60 seconds, 2 to 3 times a day to get the best results. And if you're not completely satisfied, you get your money back. No questions asked. There's simply no risk and no reason not to try Nirvanta today. Right now, you get 15% off with code Lindell exclusively at nirvantahealth.com. So stop reaching out for that medicine cabinet. Get Nirvanta instead and experience the difference. Go to nirvantahealth.com. Use code Lindell to get 15% off today. Nirvanta Health. Live well naturally.
If you'll recall, last week we shared with you the news that a Georgia judge named Amy Totenberg had dismissed the infamous Curling vs. Raffensperger case after 8 years. It was simply for standing, according to the judge. So after 8 long years, Judge Amy Totenberg decided that the plaintiffs did not have standing. Totenberg wrote that even though, say with, for example, QR code printed ballots that the voters couldn't read or verify that their vote had been cast for the right person, Totenberg said it might be challenging. She said it's not an actual obstacle to voting. She even had the gall to describe the iconic moment when a voting machine was hacked in seconds in her courtroom before her very eyes with a mere ballpoint pen while explaining that the plaintiffs had no standing. Joining me now to react to this latest news is our CEO here at Lindell TV, Mr. Mike Lindell himself, who's been very invested in this case. 8 years, Mike. 8 years. And then there's no standing.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've had to learn that word, no standing, everybody. This is the last case that I ever thought she would come out no standing. They suppressed this case for years and years, and this was the number one case that kept coming up in the last 4 years for my teams on the ground. It is the number one thing that I say. Brad Raffensperger, the Republican Secretary of State of Georgia, is the biggest traitor this country has ever seen. I put him right up there with Jena Griswold, the Democrat Secretary of State in Colorado. But he's got an R in front of his name. He has blocked everything. If you're, all the stories I tell, Emerald, like the in Georgia where the nice Democrat lady in a primary in 22, all 3 Democrats ran, and her and her husband got 0 votes in her own precinct. I mean, it's impossible, right? And Brad comes in and he looks at it, and his office says, oh, it was a programming error. Why are our elections being programmed? Well, the curling case, everybody, with that case was originally I believe it was against Brian Kemp when he was Secretary of State. They were thicker than thieves down there. You got Brian Kemp, now the governor, Brad Raffensperger, Secretary of State, Chris Carr, the Attorney General. The last 4 years, I have fought nobody more than Brad Raffensperger. This guy, remember, he was also involved in the call to the president when the president had all those things in front of him and said, gee, there's 6,000 residents or non-residents have voted in Georgia, and he had this whole list, 4,000 people that are deceased, and these big lists in front of him, and he goes down it. We call it the greatest call, but they'd only clipped part of it and leaked it to the Washington Post. But when the whole thing came out, if you listen to it, it's pretty amazing. When Brad's on the phone, Crooked Brad, and they go, the president reads this off. He goes, just fine any 2. I only lost by 11,000, some it says. And Brad goes, well, those are the wrong numbers. And the president says, well, where are the right numbers? He says, and where did we get these numbers? And his attorney says, sir, we got them from Brad's office, the Secretary of State. He asked Brad, he said, when am I going to get the real numbers? Never was answered, everybody. It went silent. Those were the real numbers, everybody, in Georgia. Georgia is so corrupt. It's the apex of all the machine fraud down there. If you're a Democrat, Republican, this is where we know, Emerald, that the uniparty, this is what we know all about the uniparty. Machines and computers, they don't care. It goes to the uniparty. Your Bushes and your Clintons and your Obamas that started I believe this uniparty, or at least for the front of it. And with this curling case, everybody, every place I showed up, I went to a big hearing in Senate hearing back in the day in Louisiana. Everyone's talking about this curling case and this guy named Alex Halderman that hacked into the machine that actually originally they gave it to him. Go ahead and look and see if there's any problems. It was called the Halderman Report. It was held back for years. And then Crooked Sister got a hold of it and they held it back. So when it finally gets, this is the same judge, Emerald, in a year and 2 months ago, when she said, hey, we're going to move this case forward. And by the way, if you question machines, you're not a conspiracy theorist. So I took off my tinfoil hat that day and I was celebrating. In January, everybody, it went to court. Just like Emerald said, they hacked him with a ballpoint pen. Not once, everybody, but twice in front of the judge. So that judge was trapped. This is what I say. Did it surprise me, Emerald, that she kicked it out on standing? No. It's all timing, everybody. There was no way this lady was going to. I think when she pushed it forward, she was surprised herself. Whoa, it got hacked right in front of me. You know, I think it scared her, actually.
She was caught in a problematic spot because originally the case was brought by Democrats during the first term.
That's right.
And then you had people join in who were pro-Trump post-2020, and it turned into a whole different thing that they did not anticipate. They had to put it on the ice, they had to seal evidence, and then finally she quietly dismisses it on standing. And just for those of you who are aware and keeping track, that's again, I think almost all of these cases related to election fraud, it's always come down to standing. There's really been no merit-based
Not one case. Right. I don't think there's any case out there yet that has been based off merit or a decision made on the merits of the case. There hasn't been, everybody. You've had to learn about standing. When I was down in Arizona, when I put up the millions of dollars to save the machines that were defective devices, I had Carrie Lake originally and Mark Bishop who were running for office, and they threw it out at first saying they didn't have standing. Who does have standing in an election then? They just rule that the people don't and the candidates don't. I wonder who does have standing. And I'll tell you another one, Amber. I had to learn the two aspects
apparently
of this
the voting machine companies.
The other
voting machine companies.
Exactly. But the other S word is sanctioning. So, you know, like me, not only when I went out to reach out to these machine companies and get about, I think it was 9 counties in the country, and it was, I think this was the Dominion lawsuit. I could say that on our station. So here's on Dominion, and so he reached out for evidence. Remember, Colorado, they deleted all the evidence in Colorado, so I couldn't get their machine. So I had a couple in Michigan where I'm at right now, and a couple other states. And the judge came back. First, they said we didn't have standing, and then they sanctioned us just for asking to look at a machine where I'm getting sued for $2-3 billion. I can't even get my own evidence, Emerald. This has been the biggest cover-up of the biggest crimes in history. There's nothing even close. They're trying, she quietly says you don't have standing. And then Crooked Brad, too, I don't know if you've seen this. Brad comes out when the president made his great election, or his executive order on elections, and he put in there no QR codes and no barcodes, which basically would eliminate the Dominion machines in Georgia. And Brad comes out and goes, well, he acted like it was a good thing. That's all a cover-up. That's all a lie. They're going to fight it down, Georgia. They're going to do something where they're going to get by with cheating and using those barcodes and those QR codes. He marked my words.
Are they? Because you inspired a bit of hope when you had Garland Favorito on your show on Friday to discuss more in depth President Trump's executive order that we've talked and I thought dissected a lot. I hadn't really heard this aspect of it. So let's take a listen and then we'll further discuss. Here's Garland Favorito on Friday on the Linda.
Okay, so the good news is, I got two things good news. One of them you've already mentioned is that President Donald Trump, in his executive order 14248, has told the EAC to update the standards for certification to ban all those QR codes like we have on this voting system and to decertify all systems certified prior to the new standard. So virtually all of the electronic voting systems are going to be decertified. Wonderful news.
Are they really? And are they going to be decertified by the midterm?
Yeah. Here's the thing, Emerald. Crooked Brad Raffensperger, he is very good at this game. There's probably no one better. What he'll do, I can already tell you what he'll do. He'll see this and he'll slow play it. And as we get close to the spring of next year, which remember, all the Republicans steal their elections in the primaries, everybody, the uniparty Republicans. When you get to the general election, you go, where did this guy come from? They stole it in the primaries. Just ask South Carolina, ask any of these states where this stuff is going on. And I'm telling you, Brad will slow play it. This is, if I was in his little war room, in his little evil planning room, he's going, okay, you guys, this is going to be a tough one. But if we slow play it, then just like he's done 3 times, Emerald, where you know what they do? Well, it's too close to this election to make any changes. The president is out in front of this by over, 18 months. And there should be plenty of time. Remember, Argentina, everybody, the last country of the 132 that have banned these electronic voting machines, Argentina, one judge made that ruling. We got to get rid of these corrupt things. We got to get rid of these devices. They can't be used in computers, just like Elon Musk said in June of last year. Computers cannot be used in elections. Argentina judge ruled, and they switched over their whole country in 4 months. So we have plenty of time to get rid of them altogether. And it'll be interesting, Emerald, but Brad's not going down without a fight. The guy is shrewd. You look up, what he does is so evil down there in Georgia. That song years ago, The Devil Went Down to Georgia, you got to wonder, I don't know. Was it Brad?
Well, right. I agree with you there. And I love the late, great Charlie Daniels. And he followed me on X. He followed me on Twitter. And that was one of the great honors of my life. Thrilled my mama, too.
Right on.
And here's the question I have. Does this executive order, I think, let's distill it down to what it provides. Does it provide a pathway to decertifying machines, or is that going to be in a subsequent executive action later down the road? I feel like, based on what I'm hearing from sources, there's probably going to be more action down the road, but relatively soon, related more directly to the machines. Is that what you're hearing?
That's what I would say. The president said it himself. I'm not saying anything that we've talked about. I went to the White House about a month ago with our findings of 4 years of everything we had. But the president said when he signed that executive order, there were 2 things very important, everybody. The first thing he said is, everybody around me, people are telling me, why are you worrying about this? You won in a landslide. Well, that's what they want to tell him. Hey, there's no problem with the machines. He's not buying it. He said, we're going to get to paper ballots, hand counted, same day voting. And then he said another thing. He goes, and there's a lot more to come. He said, I'm honored to sign this one. This is, he knows it all comes from elections. You can lose your whole country. And he said, I'm honored to sign this, but he said, more to come, everybody, more to come. And there's a lot of things that, Emerald, that are a timing thing. This is very much a strategy timing with the bad evil out there and the uniparty. And I've said it before, you all need to understand about the uniparty. We only have 2 parties left, everybody. There's no Democrat Party and Republican Party. You have the new Republican Party of common sense, and then you have this uniparty that we all exposed over the last 4 years. If the one thing we did, Emerald, was expose the uniparty. When you go to all these red states to secure our election, and you're blocked in Alabama, Arkansas, Missouri, South Dakota, all these red states, we're going, and Georgia being number 1 down there. I mean, it's, and you're getting blocked by these Republicans. You ask yourself, wait a minute. I mean, they could call them rhinos, but this is the uniparty. And this is also, remember, I've seen it happen both ways. The 22 election with Kari Lake, when I woke up and 147 machines were not working, and it was all over Fox News. I go, yes, it's over. At the same time in Kansas, everybody, I was getting reports from my teams of votes getting switched from Republicans to Democrats. So, I mean, Democrats to Republicans, just the opposite of Kari. So the uniparty works both ways. Machines don't care. They want the globalist deep staters in there.
And we're going to have much more information on that when I can divulge it. But it is not just the Democrats. That's what I'm going to say for now. It is not
That's right.
just the Democrats. And they don't believe us. They try to pretend we just say it when it's about Donald Trump. That is not true. We have an opportunity to fix it now. Real quick, before we run out of time, can you tell us about the MyPillow special, since it's a special day and we have you yourself?
Yeah, you guys. I won't be able to talk for a few days. I'm going into surgery, but it's all good though, everybody. But right now, promo code TRUTH, everybody. Use promo code TRUTH. Go to MyPillow. We have a towel in our kitchen towels that all came in, and the box stores canceled it. You guys go there and get those. They're down to $9.99. Your wholesale prices across the board at mypillow.com. Use promo code TRUTH and help support my employee-owned company and get yourself the best products ever, and you're supporting this station. So it's a win-win-win. And I'll tell you, all the boxes.
$9.99 is an amazing price.
Yeah, it's as low as $9.99, and it's all stuff for the kitchen. That's one that these box stores that cancel. These are all kitchen products that you wouldn't even think of, like pot holders and oven mitts and you name it for the kitchen. Go, what do you mean, MyPillow?
I need one. I just burnt myself today. It's so funny you say it's kitchen pot. I literally just burnt myself today doing that. So I'm going to have to go online and order some myself.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you click on the $19.99, click on the dish towel sets there. Go down once and see if they're there. Actually, you go to the radio listener square. Go down, click on my square, go back to the home. Go back to home. And when you guys scroll down, when you get there, when you get to the website, click on, go up a little higher, right there, a picture of me. Click on that. That's for our. Now there it is, the sale, the $9.99. Now click on that, $9.99. And you guys, there's the crosses. You're going to save 30% on the My Crosses. Now if you scroll down, keep scrolling down, now you're going to see aprons, oven mitts, all this stuff for the kitchen. And we didn't just develop them. We improved on every single product you could imagine that we have. And if you go back once, I'm going to talk about the crosses. The crosses that I wear, you guys, they are right there. You save 30%. That's an exclusive offer. Men's and women's, 100% made in the USA. And it's it was my most requested product I think I ever had, Emerald. They go, why don't you make the cross that you wear all the time? And if you go back one more, I want to tell one more special there. If you guys, this is an exclusive too. If you go, and by the way, my store that has over 2,000 products. You can go there and you can use promo code TRUTH also there. That's got all 100% made in the USA. And then you see the mattress toppers, 100% made in the USA, as low as $99.99. And then the premium MyPillows for $19.98 and $24.98. We sold over 84 million MyPillows now. So in spite of all the cancellations, you guys out there have helped save us. And right now, for me, we're coming into a time, everybody, where I've been so distracted trying to keep MyPillow going because of the attack. I really need your help to know they're supported with promo code TRUTH, so I can be out here and get back. I'm going to get my voice back after this surgery real good, and we're going after the people like Brad Rasberger this time around. Our voices expanded with Lindell TV and all the other platforms out there, and we are not going to let them get away with anything anymore. It's over for evil. Hey, that's a good one. It's over for evil.
I love that. It's over for evil. And we'll be praying for you this week that you have a quick recovery. It's hard to imagine that Mike Lindell would not be able to talk for 4 days. That's just the irony of it. Mike, we'll be praying for you, and we'll look forward to talking to you when you're able to join us and talk again. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thanks, Emerald. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. If you want to feel and look your best, you need to check out Pure Health Research. They have 45 premium health supplements that are designed to help you with everyday health goals. Whether it's boosting your energy or trimming belly fat, supporting healthy blood sugar, pumping your testosterone up, or even reducing swelling in your legs, Pure Health Research Supplement Store has you covered. Each formula is crafted with natural, non-GMO ingredients, backed by clinical research and manufactured right here in the USA. And here's the best part. Pure Health Research is offering you an exclusive 35% discount. Just go to purehealthresearch.com and use promo code Lindell at checkout. With their 365-day money-back guarantee, there's nothing to lose. So head over to purehealthresearch.com now, explore their 45 amazing supplements, and save 35% before this deal ends with promo code Lindell.
Disgraced Roman Catholic Cardinal Theodore McCarrick has died. The former Archbishop of the Swamp, Washington, D.C., who was very much a proponent of open borders and moderation in the Catholic Church, was charged with abusing his power over the course of his long career and sexually assaulting multiple parishioners, many of them as children. Vatican News writes that, quote, in 2020, a Vatican investigator authorized by the Pope himself and undertaken by the Secretariat of State resulted in a detailed report that provided information about McCarrick's abuses dating back to the 1980s and 1990s. The report also identified instances of partial and incomplete information that allowed the then Archbishop to assume the leadership of the Archdiocese of Washington. The Catholic Church has been going through something of an identity crisis, if you will, over the last few years, and Theodore McCarrick's story is, well, the embodiment of that crisis. Whether it be the current Pope's Trump derangement syndrome or his love of open borders and embrace of quasi-Marxist teachings, there's a disturbing breakdown in the Catholic Church. One Twitter X user, Stephen Cox, said, quote, Vatican II is the root from which all the chaos in the conciliar church springs. It has succeeded because it has been destroyed. It has, destroyed everything that was Catholic about and in the institutional hierarchy. Join us now to reflect on the passing of McCarrick is the investigative journalist and Vaticanist for the Daily Wire. It's been a while. Bree Dell.
It has.
Good to see you.
So good to see you. How are you?
And I'm sorry to see you're not based in Rome at the moment. You had the most lovely view in Rome.
I did. But, you know, I think some things have been happening here back in the States that need to be covered. So
there's quite a bit going on. Let's look at the death of McCarrick. When I texted you, I was sitting and looking at the Washington Post, and it was very interesting. And I meant to text you the picture of the article because they went into this long. It was I learned more about McCarrick and his childhood than I knew. And they went into a very long article. It wasn't really till about the end of the piece that you got to the allegations and why he was removed and the disgrace that he died in. What do you make of McCarrick's legacy now that he is officially gone? And he lived a long life. He died at 94.
Legacy is the word of the day. McCarrick was the kingmaker. He truly was. In the United States, there's not a bishop or a cardinal who is not connected to McCarrick in some degree. And that's because of his influence as the senior most cardinal and head of really the cabal in Washington, D.C., and influence, the strongest influence, I should say, in Rome for at least 3 papacies. McCarrick himself, towards the end of his life, would brag to parishioners, he had retired at this point, that he was involved with what was known as the Lavender Mafia, influencing the conclave that elected Pope Francis. But it was Pope Francis that brought him to trial after allegations of decades-long sexual abuse. And not only sexual abuse, but spiritual sexual abuse. He was involving himself with seminarians, and this had gone on for decades. And those allegations were credible and substantial and went through multiple very well-known figures in the Catholic Church and church leadership, including a Catholic archbishop now excommunicated for his own misdeeds, public misdeeds, but who has really leached himself onto the conservative side. That would be Carlo Maria Vigano. Vigano was the nuncio in 2011 who helped cover up for at least 8 years, if not more, because of his role also in the Secretariat of State in the Vatican. But as the nuncio from the Vatican to Washington, D.C., he helped cover up McCarrick. And when the 2018 grand jury report came out exposing the sexual abuse for the second time in the United States, McCarrick's name was involved, and Vigano situated himself as a whistleblower. Unfortunately, none of the information that he had as the nuncio ever came to fruition. He never provided any details, any evidence to support his multitudinous claims against not just McCarrick, but other members of the Curia. Emerald, this is a long-standing issue. Why? Because, and I did send, I'm not sure if you have a clip, but I did send a question from CNN's reporter when the Sex Abuse Summit took place right after allegations in 2018 came up. In the Vatican, they had a 3-day summit. And at the beginning of that summit, a question was asked, why should we believe you now, to Cardinal Cupich of Chicago, who was very well connected to Cardinal McCarrick at the time. And she prefaced it by saying that McCarrick was the instrument behind the 2002 response of the Catholic Church during the spotlight, scenario from Boston Globe, where the Catholic Church said, hey, we're going to come up with this safeguarding for sexual abuse victims in the Catholic Church. McCarrick was in charge of that. And he sat in front of the press and said, this is never going to happen again, while he was doing ongoing sexual abuse allegations against him. It's time for consequences. And McCarrick, yes, was laicide. He is no longer a cardinal or a priest. He died in shame. But there were many, many others who have still, to this day, not been held accountable, including Cardinal Cupich, Cardinal Tobin, the new Cardinal of Washington, D.C., who covered up and tried to suppress the report that came out of the Vatican. So there's a lot going on in the Catholic Church, and people, the faithful, are calling for accountability, to the point now that people are now calling for the government to come in and start doing investigations, since the church can't handle itself. Emerald.
You mean the federal government? The United States
government. The federal government, which is interesting considering that the FBI had been investigating allegations of misconduct and criminal behavior within certain factions of the far right, as they claimed. There are questions to ongoing investigations into sexual abuse that have gone nowhere. In fact, Emerald, while she was attorney she was an attorney general at the time, but she was AD, I believe, in San Francisco. Kamala Harris suppressed a massive amount, a very large stack of reports of sexual abuse that landed on her table when she assumed the role. She just never took any kind of accountability into investigating these things. So it's not just the Catholic Church, it's also the corruption in the government, Emerald.
Well, right. And what I was going to say, it seems like we are maybe seeing a merit of that, right? There is the Trump administration is looking into, it sounds like, Catholic charities, because, it's a Catholic related NGO.
Yes.
As it relates to Open Borders. Here's what Joe Rossi, who is petitioning the U.S. bishops to do their own independent investigation, had to say on the show last week. Listen. Come out, and they got incentivized to do so.
Yes, this started back in when the Biden administration opened the borders. There was a massive influx of unaccompanied children, and it became obvious that they did not want to have legal troubles or PR battles with unaccompanied children backing up at the border. So on March 31st, they issued field guidance number 11, which basically waived the requirement to vet sponsors. So my data and all the research I've done is there was an inadequate or no vetting process for these unaccompanied children that were flowing through these NGOs, such as Catholic Charities. You don't know, we don't get sued by traffickers. We just get sued if we back them up at the border.
All right, Ree, we have
Yeah.
about 45 seconds. Could this end up segueing into, yes, maybe some kind of more formal investigation of the church?
In fact, I do think that that needs to occur with regards to Catholic Charities, Catholic Relief Services. In fact, the USCCB, the Catholic Conference of Bishops in the United States, testified before Congress about them receiving monies from USAID in order to support Catholic Charities and Catholic Relief Services for massive amounts of refugee or migrant replacement from all the way back to Obama's era. So it is absolutely necessary to look into the money. And I think once you start to uncover the money, you're going to also probably uncover a lot of the abuse allegations. And it's not just the Catholic Church. Catholic Church is paving the way, but I guarantee you start lifting that Pandora's box, you're going to find all the denominations and all the religions, Emerald.
Yeah, it's once that box is open, I think a lot will come out, and you won't be putting it back in the box. And that's what we hope, because we'll have a chance to perhaps save children in the future. Thank you so much, Bree Dell. It's good to see you again.
It's so good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Remember, we'll be breaking that exclusive PowerPoint presentation related to Trendy Agua tomorrow on our 8 p.m. show. You can also catch me every day now, 2:30 to 3 p.m. Eastern, bringing you live coverage from Washington, D.C., the Trump White House and Congress, right here on LindellTV.com. That's the absolute truth. See you tomorrow.